Hey, hello, and welcome everybody. I hope you are having a wonderful 4th of July weekend, and that if you are not out in the sun, that you're enjoying your day, having a relaxing weekend, and it's good to see you here. So today's workshop, I wanted to talk about really a follow-up of last week. So if you weren't here last week, if you didn't catch last week's, I do recommend that you go back and check that out after you watch today's, because last week what we talked about is delaying Social Security and what it's costing you, what you are potentially giving up in Social Security benefit. And so today we're going to have a follow-up of that video, and we're going to talk about, you've decided, right? So a lot of folks, I think, decided last week that they may delay just a little bit, and now they're maybe wondering, okay, well, how do I maximize, right? How do I set myself up for success if I'm going to delay my Social Security benefit? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about what you should be thinking about, some things to think about if you are going to continue to work and if you're going to retire, and then how to think about, well, how do you fund your lifestyle if you are going to delay, but you still want to leave work, right? And you want to you want to retire, but maybe not take the benefit right away. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So hopefully you all enjoyed today's workshop. Let me pull up my screen here. And for those of you that don't know me, I should introduce myself. My name is Jason Hamilton. I am a Chartered Retirement Planning Counselor and a candidate for CFP certification. And I am the admin of this page and group. And what we do is we work within, I own a management firm, a registered investment advisor, and we help people retire with confidence. This is what we do every day. So what we do on weekends is bring you a workshop to help you learn a little bit more and get a little bit better and more prepared to retire with confidence. So welcome if you are new here, and hello if I've never met you before. I want to make sure that you feel very welcome here, because it's very important to me that that is the case. So let's pull this up here. Hey Connie, how's it going? Let's pull this up here. Okay, so like I said, every week we're going to bring you a workshop generally here. We may have some weeks that we skip because I do take vacations, but in general, every Sunday, 2 p.m. Pacific time, we're going to have a workshop on something having to do with retirement. So the title of today's workshop is that you've decided to delay claiming Social Security. Now what? Okay, so we're going to jump into that. But before we do, I have to pull up here my disclaimer screen that this should not be taken for specific advice for your situation, right? So this should not be taken as specific legal, tax, or investment advice for your situation. It is more to demonstrate and to give you some things to think about when it comes to planning for your retirement. All right, so let's talk about this. Okay, so you've decided to delay. Now, what are some things that I think you should be thinking about? Where to start? Number one is if you're going to keep working, okay? So some of you may delay, but you may keep working. So this is probably a little bit different than if you are not going to keep working. But if you're going to keep working, then one big thing to think about is if your current salary is higher than your lowest earning year of the top 35 highest earning years you've had, the Social Security Administration will use that to determine your primary insurance amount, so your PIA. So you could get the annual delay increase plus a bit higher benefit from a higher earning year. So what does that mean? It's kind of a long sentence, but what does that mean? The way Social Security determines your PIA, or your primary insurance amount at full retirement age, is what they do is they take your top 35 earning years, and then those numbers are put together through a formula so that you can then figure out what your benefit's going to be. So let's say you had some low earning years. Maybe you worked a part-time job and you were made $6,000 a year at some point in your career. Well, now maybe if you're making $60,000 a year, if you continue working and now this additional year you're going to keep working is higher than your lowest earning years, well, then that could actually help you earn or essentially increase your benefit for Social Security. It may not be a huge amount, right? It might be $50, $80, $100 a month, but still that helps out, right? That could take care of your cable bill, cell phone bill, things like that. So that's a benefit if you're going to keep working that you want to be thinking about. Another thing to think about is if you haven't worked a full 35 years, okay? So if you haven't worked a full 35 years, because this is what Social Security is going to determine your benefit by, or it's 420 months as well. And if you haven't worked a full 35 years, you have what are called 0 years, okay? So if you've ever taken any sort of basic math class, anytime if you were dividing a bunch of numbers, if you're adding a bunch of numbers together and you're dividing by zeros, that's going to decrease the amount of benefit, right? So anytime you have 0 years, any years that are 0, so less than 35, those significantly impact your projected benefit, because the benefit you see on your Social Security statements is assumed that you're going to work through until that age, until full retirement age, and continue to make at least what you're making now. So if you have years where you've earned less, or you will not work a full 35 years, by delaying and working another year, if you are going to do that, that will help out, right? That could be a wonderful thing for you. So those are some things to think about if you have been working. And then another thing to think about is you will have one more year to add to your tax advantage account, like a Roth IRA or 401k. So if you didn't know, if you don't have earned income, right? You have to have earned income to contribute to a Roth IRA or 401k. If you're going to work an additional year and you're delaying Social Security, well, now this is another year that you could put more money into a tax advantage account like a Roth IRA or 401k. So that money can be very valuable when you're looking over the next 20 or 30 years, maybe even 40 years for some of you when it comes to retirement. So that is a big advantage of potentially continuing to work while you're delaying Social Security. And then another big thing is you will need one less year from your retirement savings to cover expenses, which means you could possibly spend more on your bucket list items in early retirement. Think about it, right? If you're making $60,000 a year or $70,000 a year and you continue to work another year, well, now you need $70,000 less to cover you over your lifespan, right? So that could be a big advantage for you there. That's something to think about, okay? But I know a lot of people just want to get the heck out of Dodge. They don't want to continue working. And they do see the benefit of potentially delaying Social Security so they can have those the higher benefit long term and have more retirement credits. And so they will have a bigger floor, right? A bigger baseline of income from the delayed Social Security, but they don't want to work, okay? So these are some things you should think about if you're going to retire and then consider delaying Social Security. So if you have a low or no income earning year, you could possibly move some of your savings, your pre-tax savings, so like an IRA, 401k, or 403b, to a Roth account, right? So this is called partial Roth conversions, okay? Generally, you do not want to move all of your money from pre-tax to tax-free in 1 year. It's not how you want to do it. Generally, you want to look at the tax bracket. So maybe it's 12%, maybe it's 22, or maybe it's 24. What it's really determined by is what is going to be your terminal tax bracket. So what's going to be your tax bracket at the end of your retirement lifespan? So for those of you that have big pensions or big annuity payments, you're probably going to have a much higher terminal tax bracket than somebody who doesn't have any sort of pension. But the higher your terminal tax bracket, the more it will probably benefit you to consider converting some money over in early retirement from pre-tax to post-tax or Roth account. That's what we're talking about here. So a couple benefits to that. This could allow you to access more money later without activating your highest tax bracket. So think about this. If you already have your Social Security benefit going, you have a pension going, and now you are 75 years old, you're going to have this required minimum distribution coming out. Well, if you want to take additional money out, that's going to come out as probably your highest tax bracket ever, right? But if you have some more money where you've moved it to a Roth account and you need to take some more money out that year, maybe you want to give some money away. Maybe you want to help out a loved one, help your child with a down payment on a house, things like that. You could take money out if you have more money in a Roth account and draw it from there without impacting your tax brackets. Something I didn't note down here is you might be able to keep yourself lower so that you don't hit those what are called IRMA limits. And IRMA limits are when you go over a certain amount of income, then you could actually cause yourself to have to pay more for Medicare, right? So these are all things that you can benefit yourself later by looking at these things called partial Roth conversions, okay? Conversions could also help you lower your required minimum distributions, also known as RMDs. A lot of folks have low income needs for their base income need in retirement, especially later down the road. And so if you have a big required minimum distribution coming out because you left all your money in pre-tax accounts, well, if you do some conversions early, this can help avoid that. I have a lot of clients that are in their 50s and 60s, but their parents are in their mid 70s or 80s. And at that time, generally people slow down, right? So a lot of times in early retirement, you're going to spend more, and then generally your spending is going to go down a little bit, and then it usually increases towards the end when it comes to covering things like healthcare. That's called the retirement smile, right? That's what that's called. So when you're down in these lower need years, so 75 to 85 generally, Well, if you have all your money pre-tax and it's all coming out at your top tax bracket, well, what I find is many of my clients' parents are very annoyed because not only are they paying money at their highest tax bracket, then they don't really need that money. So what they do is they take that money and then they reinvest it in a taxable portfolio. And now that taxable portfolio is kicking off a bunch of dividends each year, or if it's in CDs and that's taxable income, when that comes out, it's just taxes on taxes on taxes. So they're very annoyed and they wish they would have known how to properly optimize early on, especially when they had those lower earning years before they took Social Security. So doing some of these conversions can be really helpful there. Okay. And like I said, this is especially beneficial if you'll have other guaranteed income sources like pensions or annuities that don't allow you to control your tax brackets later quite as much. If you have all your money in assets like 401ks, Roth IRAs, and taxable accounts, you could sort of pull as necessary to cover your needs and then really optimize for taxes on an annual basis. But if you have fixed income sources like pensions, if you have all your other money pre-tax, you kind of lose the ability to control tax brackets later. So that could cost you a lot of money down the road. Think about it this way. What's it worth if you save $10,000 in taxes every year for 20 years, right? That's $200,000 minimum. So, and if taxes go up down the road, then that's just even more money that you're going to be able to keep. So these are all things you want to be thinking about as you are planning an early retirement here, okay? So now I want to talk about getting the money out, okay? So you need to have a plan. I can tell you that for when it comes to retiring. So this is still, we're talking about folks that are going to be retiring here, not ones that are continuing to work, that will need to fund their lifestyle from their retirement savings, okay? So there's a lot of strategy here when it comes to pulling your money out in the most tax efficient way. And you could pull, sometimes it makes more sense to pull out things in a particular order. So maybe it's taxable, tax deferred, then tax free. But for some people, it makes more sense to pull a little bit from tax deferred, a little bit from taxable, and a little bit from tax free to kind of manipulate the tax bracket. So I want to talk to you about some things to think about here when you are planning your strategy. Okay. So number one, will you have health insurance cover? Okay. If you are lucky enough to have health insurance taken care of for yourself because maybe you, worked for the government or something like that, this doesn't come into play as much. Or maybe you have a benefit from work, because I know a lot of people actually have a benefit from work where they can their employer will pay for health care all the way till they hit Medicare age, which is 65. So that's really beneficial, okay? But if you don't, which is the majority of people, okay? If you don't, then your strategy, your withdrawal strategy, will have to consider keeping your income under ACA subsidy limits if it is at all possible, okay? So we talked about those last week. It's about $48,000 for a single person and about $68,840 for a married couple, right? So we really want to keep your income under that because that will help you qualify for a potential subsidy, which will lower your healthcare costs for all these years pre-Medicare if you are retiring before 65. So what you have to remember here, though, is sometimes this may not be the most tax efficient strategy, okay? But if you have to pay a little bit more in taxes, but we can now save you $800 a month in healthcare costs per year, then paying a little bit more tax may make sense, right? So if you have to pay another $1,500 in taxes, but we're lowering your healthcare costs by $10,000 a year by doing so, yeah, we're probably going to do that, right? Because we're looking at net. We want to look at what is going to keep you and have you have the most money still in your bank account at the end of the year, right? And then another thing to consider is if you only have healthcare cover for a short period. So let's say you're going to retire at 62, your Medicare kicks in at 65, and you have 18 months of COBRA that you're going to use. Well, now you only have half of your time frame here pre-Medicare covered, so now you're going to have to cover another 18 months. Well, what you want to be cautious of is in that second year, you may have to switch over to an ACA plan, or also known as Obamacare government healthcare plan type of deal. So any of the metal plans. Then what's going to happen is if you take out too much money from your pre-tax accounts early in the year when you're on COBRA, that could put your income over what you need to qualify for that second 6-month period when it comes to getting qualified for some sort of ACA plan. So there's a lot of strategy, guys. There's a lot of strategy that goes into this. And if you're going to be retiring early, delaying healthcare, you really want to think through these things when it comes to how to optimize for your particular situation, okay? All right, so either way, we're going to have to develop a strategy that gives you the most tax efficiency possible while making sure you have the lifestyle you want in retirement. Because you don't want to just retire early and do nothing, right? That's not ideal. You really want to do what you want to do as well. So you've got to look at how we're going to cover your lifestyle, get you what you want to do, but then at the same time, keep taxes low and then manage for healthcare costs, okay? So this is kind of like it's a puzzle we're putting together here. Okay, and then if you have a few years until retirement, so let's say you're maybe late 50s or early 60s and you have a few years until retirement and you want to retire before 65, so Medicare age, and delay Social Security, then this is where your contribution strategy will become important, okay? So sometimes people are putting all their money pre-tax now or all their money Roth now, and they're not really thinking through what's it going to look like after retirement when it comes to optimizing and then having these tax buckets together. So contribution strategy is going to be very important when you have a couple years put aside or a couple years until retirement. So for example, you may be in a higher tax bracket now. So maybe you're in a 22 or 24% tax bracket now, and maybe in retirement, you're going to be in a 12% or lower. So from a tax perspective, it may make more sense to contribute to your pre-tax 401k, right? So that's normally what you'd want to do. If normally you want to say, hey, well, if I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket after retirement, then it makes more sense to do pre-tax today and pay, put it away when I'm paying 20 or 22 or 24, and then take it out when I'm paying 12% or less. Well, now we have a 12% gap there a 10% gap that we're going to be keeping from the tax man, right? But if you look ahead a couple years, and those withdrawals you will need to cover your lifestyle push you over the ACA limits for a subsidy, then you may want to consider shifting more of your contributions to Roth or taxable accounts, right? So what does that mean? So let's say you have a pension that's going to be coming in, and that pension's $3,000 a month, right? And that's taxable income. And you need to keep your income below $65,840 to qualify for a healthcare subsidy, but in the first years of retirement, you want to spend more on vacations, right? Well, if all your money is pre-tax, well, if you have to put all that, all the money you need to take out to cover your lifestyle is going to be taxable, and that's going to bump you over the ACA income limits, and now you're going to pay an extra $10,000 a year for healthcare, then that may not make sense quite as much when it comes to, how you're going to actually cover your goals, and then whether it makes more sense to do tax deferred today versus paying taxes today and doing some tax-free later, right? So contribution strategy is going to be very important, okay? And then the other thing too is if you're going to be putting some money in taxable accounts, so this is non-retirement accounts and like a brokerage account basically, you have to be a bit careful because with taxable accounts, you can have dividends, right? And if you're kicking off some dividends each year, that can raise your income, and then you're not quite fully in control of where you're drawing your money from in each bucket. So this is something just to be aware of if you are going to be putting some money, like let's say you maxed out your Roth accounts already and you want to put more away that is not tax deferred and you want to go to taxable. You just want to look at what type of funds you're using. So you really want to do really tax efficient funds, when it comes to investing that money for retirement. Okay. All right. So if this may be the case for you, this is how I would recommend you approach this. Okay. First of all, you want to look ahead. Okay. So if you have a few years until retirement, even if you're getting close to retirement, you still want to look ahead and then really look through your strategy. Okay. How much money are you going to need to fund your lifestyle? Okay. You want to get really tight on that. And I talked about yesterday going through and creating a plan to make sure you understand what your income needs are. And so you can go back and review yesterday's video if you want to learn more about that. And I gave you a tool that you can use there. But you want to look at how much money will you need to fund your lifestyle. Okay. And then the next thing to think about is, well, how many years are you going to delay Social Security? Are you going to delay it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Are you going to go all the way till 70? So depending on how many years you're going to delay Social Security, then that's really going to play into how your income plan is going to be set up. So there really is a sweet spot for most people. I've done dozens of plans this year for people, and what I've come to find out is there really is a sweet spot when you look at how to time it for people to get the income that they need to give them the most retirement confidence and then the highest floor of income without draining too much of their assets. So sometimes it is full retirement age, sometimes it's 70, and sometimes it's earlier. So it really is dependent on the person, their goals, and their income needs. Okay, and then by delaying Social Security, what percentage of your post-retirement income need will be covered when you do draw, right? So what do I mean by that? So let's say you needed $4,000. Let's say $4,000 a month of income to cover your needs in retirement, okay? Well, if you were to draw Social Security at 62, okay, let's say that gave you $1,500, okay? So if you had $1,500, and coming from Social Security, you would have a 37.5% of your post-retirement income need covered by Social Security, okay? So 37.5 if you drew it and you have $1,500 coming in. Well, let's say you delayed until 66, and now you have $2,000, right? So instead of having 37.5% of your retirement need covered, now you're at 50% of your retirement need covered, and that's forever, right? So that's a big benefit if you do delay, because you're going to have more of your retirement income need covered. So this is kind of like your income floor, and this is what annuities can be used for as well. But if you think about it, Social Security really is an annuity, and it's the best annuity that's out there because it comes with cost of living adjustment. Almost no annuities come with that, right? Okay, and then the other thing you want to look at is how will this impact your retirement confidence with the higher guaranteed income with inflation adjustment for life. So this is a big deal. And this is one thing that people don't really, I don't think they do a really good job of when it comes to figuring this out for themselves. And I'm going to show you an example here. Okay, so let's talk about the example. So let me jump over here and go over a scenario with you here. Okay, so I have a scenario here for you where these folks we're planning to take Social Security at 62, okay? And by taking Social Security at 62, they had a 81% chance of probability of success, which is pretty good, right? I feel pretty good about that when I'm running numbers for people. 81%. I think that sounds pretty good. The challenge here is these folks actually wanted to spend more money on vacations, okay? So they want to spend more money on vacations than they had allocated right now. So if they take Social Security early and spend more money on vacations, let's talk about how that would impact them, okay? So let's say we wanted to raise their vacation goal to $4,000 a year. Well, now we've dropped their confidence to 75%. So we've lost 6% off of our probability of success, which it's okay, but I don't know if I really, really like that, right? So that makes the plan feel a little bit more stressed than it needs to be, I think. So what I'll look at with folks like this is, well, what if we delay, okay? What if we delay Social Security for these folks and we live off their assets that they have saved? How does that play out long term? So let me show you here if we delay to full retirement age for these folks here. Okay, well now by delaying to full retirement age, this is not including the vacations yet, we've gone from 81% up to 94%. Okay, this is not including the vacations. So this is just by delaying. So for these folks, by delaying Social Security to full retirement age, and this is a projected life span of 90, okay, this is them living to 90, then they've gone up to 94%. Well, let's say we want to raise their vacation to their $4,000 goal that they had, and this will be for the first 16 years of retirement. Well, now, by delaying to full retirement age and doing their spending goal, we now have an 89% confidence of probability of success. So this is really good. Not only are we increasing probability of success, but we're allowing them to spend $4,000 a year additional, even though they're delaying Social Security and they have to live off their assets for the first 5 years, to make sure they have all the things that they want to have and they can spend more money. So I find this pretty interesting. By delaying Social Security, we can actually even go up a little higher on spending. Let's say we go to $8,000. So to have the same probability of success, because these folks delayed to full retirement age for their Social Security, they can now spend $8,000 more per year on vacations, right? This is what people don't realize sometimes is by delaying Social Security, you can actually spend more for longer throughout your Social Security timeline. So what does that look like here? Let's talk about income, okay? So if these folks were to draw as early as possible, okay, so they're going to draw here at 62. This purple here is their Social Security income, okay? So if they drew at 62, they're only going to get $42,300, and now they have to have a savings withdrawal starting at 63 of $32,000 and going up throughout the years. So they're going to have to cover themselves, over time, up to $40,000 from their savings, and they only have 47.9% of their income, which is stable. Okay. So let's go here to delaying to full retirement age and see how that plays out. And let's put our vacation goal back at the same 4,000, so it's even. Okay. So now we do have a bigger savings withdrawal, right? As you can see, these early years, we're going to have a bigger savings withdrawal. But once we hit Social Security age, now we're at 56,000, and 55% of their income is stable. So now our withdrawal rate for retirement is going to be pretty minimal. So 2-3% to cover everything that they want to do, right? So now we're below a 4% withdrawal rate for the rest of retirement, which is pretty nice and very, very secure for most people. Okay. So I hope this makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, put a question in, and I'll do my best to answer it. So what if we delay till 70? Okay, in this particular case. Well, now we have a 96% probability of success, and I've increased our vacation goal to $10,000. So by delaying Social Security to 70, not only are we going to have a better probability of success, we're actually going to be able to spend $10,000 more per year on vacations the first 15 years of retirement. And so this is what I don't think people realize a lot of times. They think they're losing money by delaying Social Security, but in reality, you increase your probability of success a lot higher for most people, and then it can actually allow you to spend a whole lot more, even if you have to draw from your own assets early in retirement. So I really hope this makes sense to you here, okay? So if it doesn't make sense, leave a question and we'll talk about that. Okay, now we're going to jump over to a quiz, okay, since you guys like this so much. So for those of you that are tuning in, we have a quiz here for you, and I want to see if you can answer these questions based on what we talked about today, okay? So in the comments, leave me the answer to this question here. Okay, so what happens if you haven't worked a full 35 years and you work an additional year? What happens if you haven't worked a full 35 years and you work an additional year? Will your Social Security benefit, will it be lower, higher, or the same? If you have not worked a full 35 years and you work an additional year, will it be lower, higher, or the same? So A is lower, B is higher, and C is the same. Let me know in the comments what your answer is to this question. And if you think about it, if you're 62, you would have had to start working at 27, which most people do. Most people will have 35 years. I think most people start working by 37. By 27, which is reasonable. But there are people, especially like spouses, for example, that maybe started as a full-time stay-at-home parent, and then they had to work later, right? They may have less than 35 years at that point. So getting a lot of B's here, a lot of B's. So let's see what the answer is here. The B's are correct, right? So generally, if you haven't worked a full 35 years and you work an additional year, your Social Security benefit will be higher. So great job to everybody who said B. Okay. Now, next question is, if you delay Social Security, like we talked about today, but stop working, okay? So this is like the example when I talked about, let's say you're going to stop working at 62 because you want to retire, but you're going to delay Social Security. So now you need to cover your income need from your savings, okay? Which account should you draw from first, okay? If you delay Social Security but stop working, which account should you draw from first and why? If you have a why, you can put that in the comments as well. If you delay Social Security but stop working, which account should you draw from first? A is taxable, B is tax deferred, so that would be like your 401k or IRAs. C would be tax free. Oops, I put 401k, I meant 401k and a Roth IRA, Roth 401k or Roth IRA. And D is it depends, okay? And remember, if you take from your taxable, that doesn't raise your income. If you take from tax free, that doesn't raise your income. Tax deferred does raise your income. But if you stop working, and where you should draw from first. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of D's coming through here. So D is the correct answer, but I want to talk about why, okay? Your withdrawal order will depend on your unique circumstances and should include considerations for taxes, healthcare, and your goals. Okay, so this is what you want to be thinking about. What's it going to cost you in taxes from where you draw from? Are you going to have to cover healthcare? And if you do, how are you going to make sure that you can potentially qualify for a subsidy and achieve the goals that you want, right? So what goals do you want to do? When do you want to take those vacations, right? What years do you want to do the big vacations? What years do you want to do a little bit more mellow vacations? Which years are you just going to kind of hang around the house and do the repairs and do all the things you didn't do while you were still working and spend more time around the house? So, in reality, I think D is the correct answer, but in reality, it could be A, B, or C, and it really depends on your unique scenario. So I hope you found value in today's workshop. I'm going to see if there's any questions here. You guys have any questions for me? Go ahead and put those in the comments. And if you are somebody that needs help with this strategy, I'm going to put up some information here for you so that you can get in touch with me if you like. So if you'd like to schedule a time to chat about your unique scenario, you can go to keepitsimplefinancial.com/talk. That'll take you right to my calendar page, and it'll show you the appointments I have available for complimentary retirement strategy consultations. So are there any questions here? Let me go through the comments and see. Okay, so Carol asked, how will you have higher taxes while you are keeping income low to qualify for an ACA subsidy? Well, Carol, you may have higher taxes because it just depends on the scenario. Because let's say your only account that you have for retirement is your 401k. And let's say it's all pre-tax money, right? So if you only have a pre-tax account to pull money from to cover your expenses, well then all that money that's coming out is going to be taxable. So you could have higher taxes during that time. So if you're trying to keep your income low because you want to qualify because you know you're going to need to cover healthcare, right? You know you're going to need to have an ACA subsidy to be able to retire because maybe you can't afford $1,400 a month in healthcare, which most people can't, and you want to keep your healthcare lower at like $400 a month. Well, then you're going to need to plan ahead on where you're putting your money for retirement, your contributions, so that you can keep your income low enough to qualify. That's what I meant by that. So I hope that's clear. Okay. Let's see what else. So Brian asked, I am 60 and working, all contributions in 401k. Should I be contributing to a Roth? So here's the thing, Brian. Like, this is what I talked about today. You really want to look at when are you going to retire? When are you thinking about drawing Social Security? How do you get the maximum benefit? What goals do you have early on, and how much is it going to take you to fund that lifestyle? Okay, so retiring to or contributing to a Roth could make sense if you don't have any Roth money and it's all pre-tax. But you have to remember, you might be in a higher tax bracket now than you will be post-retirement. So these are some things that you really need to look at your scenario and figure out what makes the most sense for you. Okay, so. You just noted there that you won't take Social Security till full retirement age. So here's the thing. Question I would have for you. Do you already have a Roth account open of some sort? Because if you have a Roth account open of some sort and you have some Roth money there, or do you have money that is taxable money, so in your checking account or savings account you can live off of? So those things would potentially be able to help you live off of that while you delayed Social Security. So it could make sense for you, Brian, but I really would want to look at your unique scenario and help you figure out that strategy on where to put the money so that you can optimize for taxes on the short term and the long term. Okay, so I hope that helps. I know it's not a direct answer, but I really need to look at your particular scenario. So, all right, guys, those are the only questions that I'm seeing come through for today. I hope you found today's workshop valuable. If you need anything at all, drop me a comment, set up an appointment. I'd love to chat with you. And other than that, have a wonderful weekend, and I'll be talking to you very soon. Okay, bye-bye now, guys.